Welcome to Behind the Basketball. Today, we are taking a deep look at one of the most polarizing figures in modern basketball history. He was a scoring machine who took the college world by storm, a man who became a cultural icon before he ever stepped foot on an NBA court, and a player whose professional journey is often misunderstood. From the hardwood of Spokane to the bright lights of the Staples Center, this is the comprehensive story of the Stash himself. Join us as we explore the rise, the struggles, and the resilient legacy of Adam Morrison. Section 1. Birth and the Roots of a Competitor. Adam John Morrison was born on July 19, 1984, in the small town of Glendive, Montana. To understand Adam, you have to understand the environment of his birth, a place where grit and toughness are not just valued, but required. He was born into a basketball family. His father, John Morrison, was a basketball coach, which meant Adam was essentially born with a whistle in one ear and the sound of a bouncing ball in the other. Glendive was a humble beginning, but it provided the isolation and focus necessary for a young athlete to develop a singular obsession. From the moment he was able to walk, Adam was a fixture in gymnasiums. Because his father coached at the collegiate level, Adam wasn't just playing with kids his own age. He was watching how men prepared for the game. He saw the sweat, the film sessions, and the strategic side of the sport before he even started elementary school. This early exposure gave him a basketball IQ that would eventually far surpass his peers. However, his story isn't just one of athletic destiny. Early on, the Morrison family moved from Montana to Casper, Wyoming, and eventually settled in Spokane, Washington. This transition was crucial, as Spokane would become the backdrop for his entire identity. But the most defining event of his early life occurred when he was just a boy. While attending a basketball camp, Adam began to experience strange symptoms: excessive thirst, frequent urination, and rapid weight loss. After being rushed to the doctor, he was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. For many children, this diagnosis would have been a reason to step away from high-impact sports. For Adam, it became the fuel for his competitive fire. He had to learn to manage his blood sugar with pinpoint accuracy, calculating insulin doses and carbohydrate intake, while trying to compete at an elite level. This medical hurdle added a layer of mental toughness to his game that most players never have to develop. The early years in Glendive and the subsequent move to Spokane shaped a kid who was inherently different. He wasn't the polished athlete that modern fans are used to seeing. He was a throwback, a gym rat who didn't care about the aesthetic of the game as much as the results. His birth and early childhood established a foundation of resilience. He learned that life wasn't going to be easy, and he learned that his body had a specific set of rules he had to follow. By the time he was out of his toddler years, Adam was already a student of the game, a veteran of the coaching life, and a young man battling a lifelong illness with a stubbornness that would later define his collegiate dominance. He carried the spirit of Glendive with him, a raw, unyielding Montana toughness that would soon find its way to the top of the basketball world. Section 2. Middle School and the Ball Boy Era. By the time Adam Morrison reached middle school in Spokane, he was already becoming a local legend, though not necessarily for his scoring yet. He was the kid who was always there. During his middle school years, he landed a job that every basketball-obsessed kid in Washington dreamed of. He was a ball boy for the Gonzaga Bulldogs. This wasn't just a fun after-school activity. It was a front-row seat to a revolution. He was on the court during the 1999 season when Gonzaga made their historic run to the Elite Eight, a run that put the mid-major program on the national map. Watching players like Richie Fromm and Casey Calvary up close gave Adam a blueprint for success. He saw that you didn't need to be at a blue blood school to be great. In middle school, Adam was already showing signs of the scoring prowess that would eventually make him famous. He wasn't the tallest kid in the 7th grade, nor was he the most athletic, but he had a knack. He understood the geometry of the floor. While his classmates were focused on flashy crossovers, Adam was perfecting the mid-range jumper, a lost art that he would eventually master better than almost anyone in the country. His middle school years were also a critical period for his health. This was the time when managing his type 1 diabetes became a personal responsibility, rather than just something his parents handled. He had to carry glucose tablets in his socks and monitor his pump during games. There were moments of fear and exhaustion, but he refused to let it sideline him. In the middle school gyms of Spokane, he started to develop the floppy hair and the beginning of the competitive scowl that would become his trademark. He played for local AAU teams, often playing up against older, more physically developed players. This forced him to rely on his footwork and his release speed. Middle school was where the obsession truly took hold. He was known to spend hours at the local YMCA or the neighborhood park, shooting hundreds of jumpers until his blood sugar would drop dangerously low. He would treat the low, wait for his levels to stabilize, and go right back to the hoop. His peers started to notice that Adam wasn't just playing for fun. He was playing with a desperate need to win. He wasn't interested in the social scene of middle school. He was interested in the rotation of the ball. By the time he was ready to head to high school, he had already seen the pinnacle of college basketball from the sidelines as a ball boy and had developed a work ethic that was frankly terrifying to his opponents. He was a skinny kid with a high basketball IQ and a medical condition that he treated like a minor inconvenience, ready to take over the Spokane high school scene. Adam Morrison attended Meade High School in Spokane, and it was here that the legend truly began to crystallize. As a freshman and sophomore, he was already showing that he was a level above the competition, but it was his junior and senior years that cemented his status as a Washington State icon. At Meade, Adam wasn't just a player, he was the system. He grew into a 6'8" frame that allowed him to shoot over smaller guards, while possessing the ball-handling skills to navigate through traffic. He led Meade to the state championship game, and while they didn't always come away with the trophy, Adam's individual performances were the stuff of folklore. During his senior year at Meade, Adam averaged 27.7 points per game. These weren't easy points. He was double-teamed from the moment he stepped off the bus. He became a master of the tough bucket, leaning jumpers, fadeaways, and contested threes that seemed to defy the laws of physics. The Spokane fans would pack the gyms hours in advance just to watch him warm up. It was during high school that the Adam Morrison aesthetic fully formed. The long, unkempt hair and the wispy mustache were a fashion statement. They were a sign of a kid who simply didn't have time for a haircut because he was too busy in the gym. One of the most remarkable aspects of his high school career was his performance in the state tournament. Playing with an insulin pump attached to his waist, he put on scoring displays that left recruiters from across the country salivating. Yet despite his numbers, many major programs were wary. They saw a player who wasn't explosive by NBA standards and worried about how his diabetes would hold up under the rigors of a college schedule. But one school never wavered: Gonzaga. Having been their ball boy and a local product, the Bulldogs knew exactly what they were getting. They weren't looking at his vertical leap, they were looking at his heart and his jumper. In his final high school game, a loss in the state title game, Adam sat on the bench and wept. It was a preview of the raw emotion he would show later in life. He cared deeply about every possession. He finished his high school career as the all-time leading scorer in Meade history and one of the most decorated players in the history of Greater Spokane League basketball. He had proven that he could carry a team on his back, that he could manage his health under extreme pressure, and that he was the best player in the state of Washington. The transition to the college ranks was no longer a question of if, but a question of how high he can fly. He arrived at Gonzaga, not as a stranger, but as a returning hero ready to take the program to heights it had never seen before. Section 4. The Gonzaga Phenom and the Year of the Stash. When Adam Morrison stepped onto the campus of Gonzaga University, he was joining a program that was already respected, but he was the catalyst that turned them into a national obsession. After a solid freshman year where he showed flashes of brilliance, his sophomore and junior years became a whirlwind of scoring titles and Morrison mania. By the 2005-2006 season, Adam was the most recognizable face in college sports. He wasn't just a basketball player, he was a cultural phenomenon. The stash was on the cover of Sports Illustrated, and every game he played became a national television event. His junior year was a statistical masterpiece. He averaged 28.1 points per game, leading the nation in scoring. His rivalry with Duke's J.J. Redick for the National Player of the Year award was one of the greatest individual battles in the history of the NCAA. Every night, it seemed Adam was dropping 30 or 40 points, often while being hounded by the best defenders the opposing teams could offer. His performance against Michigan State in the Maui Invitational, where he scored 43 points in a triple overtime thriller, is still considered one of the greatest single-game performances in college basketball history. He was hitting shots from the logo, twisting his body in midair, and barking at opponents with a ferocity that polarized fans. But the 2006 NCAA tournament would provide the most iconic and perhaps most painful moment of his career. Gonzaga entered the tournament with high expectations, and Adam was determined to lead them to a Final Four. In the Sweet 16, they faced the UCLA Bruins. Gonzaga held a significant lead late in the game, and it looked like Adam was going to achieve his dream. However, a catastrophic collapse in the final minutes allowed UCLA to storm back. As the final buzzer sounded and Gonzaga's season ended in a heartbreaking loss, Adam Morrison collapsed to the floor in tears. The image of him crying on the court became the defining image of that tournament, a raw display of passion that endeared him to some and made him a target for others. Despite the painful end, Adam's college career was a resounding success. He was a consensus first-team All-American and shared the Oscar Robertson Trophy with J.J. Redick. He had taken a mid-major school and made them the center of the basketball universe. He had managed his diabetes flawlessly on the biggest stage, proving that it was no barrier to greatness. He left Gonzaga after his junior year to enter the NBA draft, but his impact on the school and the city of Spokane was permanent. He wasn't just a great player, he was the personification of the Gonzaga spirit, unconventional, gritty, and capable of taking on the giants of the sport. He headed to the NBA as a top prospect, ready to see if his mid-range magic would translate to the professional level. Section 5, the NBA years. 2006-07, the rookie campaign in Charlotte. The Charlotte Bobcats selected Adam Morrison with the 3rd overall pick in the 2006 NBA draft. Expectations were sky high for the Gonzaga great. In his rookie season, Adam played in 78 games, starting 23 of them. He averaged 11.8 points, 2.9 rebounds, and 2.1 assists per game. Early in the season, he looked like the scoring threat everyone expected, including a 30-point eruption against the Indiana Pacers. However, as the long NBA season wore on, the physical toll and the adjustment to the speed of the pro game began to show. He struggled with his shooting efficiency, hitting only 37.6% from the field. Despite the inconsistent shooting, he was named to the NBA All-Rookie second team. This year was a learning experience, as he had to adjust to not being the primary option on every single possession. He was playing heavy minutes and managing his diabetes under the intense travel schedule of the NBA. While critics pointed to his defense and shooting splits, the Bobcats still believed they had a cornerstone for the future. He showed flashes of that tough bucket ability that had made him a star in college. 2007-08, the lost year. The 2007-08 season was supposed to be Adam's breakout year. He spent the summer working on his strength and his lateral quickness to address the defensive concerns critics had raised during his rookie year. Unfortunately, disaster struck during a preseason game against the Los Angeles Lakers. While defending Luke Walton, Morrison's knee gave out. He had suffered a torn anterior cruciate ligament (ACL) in his left knee. The injury required surgery and forced him to miss the entire 2007-08 season. This was a devastating blow to a young player who relied so heavily on his rhythm and footwork. While his teammates were competing on the court, Adam was stuck in the grueling process of rehabilitation. The mental toll of being sidelined is often harder than the physical recovery, and for a competitor like Morrison, it was a dark period. He watched from the sidelines as the Bobcats continued to struggle, unable to help his team or continue his development. This lost year changed the trajectory of his career, as he lost a step of quickness that he could ill afford to lose at the NBA level. 2008-2009, from Charlotte to the Lakers. Adam returned to the court for the 2008-2009 season, but he was clearly not the same player. His minutes in Charlotte were slashed as he struggled to find his rhythm coming off the ACL surgery. He played 44 games for the Bobcats, averaging just 4.5 points per game. Seeing that he wasn't part of their long-term plans, Charlotte traded Morrison and Shannon Brown to the Los Angeles Lakers in exchange for Vladimir Radmanovich in February 2009. This trade changed everything for Adam. He went from a struggling team to a championship contender led by Kobe Bryant. While he didn't play significant minutes for the Lakers, appearing in only 8 games during the regular season, he was part of a winning culture. He watched and learned from Kobe's Mamba mentality every day in practice. The Lakers went on to win the 2009 NBA championship, and Adam Morrison earned his first championship ring. Though he wasn't a rotation player, his teammates often praised his work ethic in practice and his basketball IQ during film sessions. He was a champion, providing a silver lining to a difficult comeback season. 2009-10, the second ring and the end of an era. The 2009-10 season would be Adam's final full season in the NBA. He remained with the Lakers, serving as a deep bench option and a practice specialist. He played in 31 games, averaging 2.4 points and 1.0 rebounds in about 7.8 minutes per contest. While his statistical impact was minimal, his presence in the locker room was valued. Phil Jackson, the legendary Lakers coach, appreciated Morrison's understanding of the triangle offense. The Lakers were a juggernaut that year, battling through a grueling season to reach the NBA Finals once again. They defeated the Boston Celtics in an epic 7-game series to repeat as champions. Adam Morrison secured his second NBA championship ring in as many years with the Lakers. Despite the lack of playing time, Morrison remained a professional, always ready if his number was called. However, at the end of the season, the Lakers did not re-sign him. He had 2 rings, but the scoring phenom from Gonzaga was now a free agent, looking for a new home. His NBA journey was nearing its conclusion as injuries and role changes had altered his path. Section 6, Post-NBA Life and the Return to the Roots. After the 2010 season, Adam Morrison's professional journey took him overseas. He spent time playing in Europe, joining Crvena Zvezda in Serbia and later Beşiktaş in Turkey. In Europe, he showed that he still had the scoring touch, putting up big numbers and reminding fans of the player he was at Gonzaga. He eventually returned to the United States and had a brief stint with the Portland Trail Blazers in the preseason of 2012, but he was ultimately waived. He officially retired from professional basketball shortly after, leaving the game with 2 NBA rings and a legacy as one of the greatest college players to ever live. But Adam's story didn't end with retirement. He returned to his home, Spokane. He went back to Gonzaga University to finish his degree and served as a student assistant coach under Mark Few. His deep understanding of the game made him an asset to the coaching staff, and he helped mentor the next generation of Bulldogs. Today, Adam is a regular presence in the Spokane community and works as a radio analyst for Gonzaga basketball games. He has also embraced the world of podcasting and media, where his candid, insightful, and often humorous takes on the game have earned him a new legion of fans. He lives a relatively quiet life, focusing on his family and his love for the game from a different perspective. He is no longer the kid with the stash crying on the floor. He is a respected elder statesman of the program he helped build, a man who has experienced the highest highs and the lowest lows of the sport and come out the other side with his dignity and his love for basketball intact. Adam Morrison is a reminder that a basketball career isn't always a straight line to the Hall of Fame. Sometimes it's a story of incredible peaks, devastating injuries, and the resilience to find a new path. He gave us one of the most exciting eras in college basketball history, and walked away with 2 NBA championships. Whether you remember him for the scoring titles at Gonzaga or the rings with the Lakers, there is no denying that Adam Morrison left an indelible mark on the game. Thank you for watching this deep dive into the life of the Stash. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and let us know in the comments who we should cover next. This has been Behind the Basketball, and we'll see you in the next one.